Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Welcome, you have tuned in to the Retro Zoo Super Show on WTRI of Kakariko Village, and I'm going to be your host for today. My name is Kai, and we are hitting up on our Warcraft Backbeat episode. So, if you haven't tuned into these Backbeat episodes before, it's what happens when we take we take on a big topic in an episode, and there's something left over that we want to cover, almost in a little bit of a smaller format, a little bit less formal, and that's very often the case when there's just something about the game that we're discussing that is interesting, or interesting, at least interesting to us, and that we kind of want to talk about, but we really don't have time in the main episode. So if you tuned in last week, we were discussing Warcraft and Warcraft 2. And this topic is just so huge and big that we barely and I realize we barely scratched the surface of it. But this week there was a little thing called a Warcraft movie, and I had not seen it when we did the Warcraft episode, but I honestly thought it was about time. Actually wanted to see the Sonic movie and kind of do an episode on that here in the last couple of weeks, but it hasn't been for lack of trying that I haven't made it over there. It's just been the scheduling craziness, that there's just been so much, really so much going on that it's been just darn near impossible to cut out a couple of hours where I could head over to the movie theater and take in a show. Warcraft being something that is available to rent, download, to whatever, was a lot easier to fit in. I actually started it one night, continued it while I was getting ready the next morning, and then took a break, a mid-morning break, to finish it up, and so it's it's just a little bit easier to tackle in that way. Actually, I went to rent it over on Amazon, and I found that to purchase it was almost as cheap as to rent it, and so went ahead and bought it with just the hopes that it's like, please don't just be horrible, so that you're just sitting in my video, my digital video, and taking up space. But we'll get into that a little bit here. So, this movie came out not ridiculously long ago. It was in 2016, and so this was this was, and this is kind of important for the production of this film. This was post WoW, and and just like all of the hugeness that Warcraft became. And that really is important for the production of this movie, because this movie is based on the first Warcraft game, Warcraft Orcs and Humans. But there's not a ton of plot in that game. There are actually very few named characters in that game, and the named characters that you get, there's not a lot told about them. Like, that there's a half-orc named Garona who, and a little bit of a spoiler here, for the original game and also the movie, there's a half-orc named Garona who kills the king. And that there is also a little bit of a spoiler. Try to limit the spoilers somewhat in this, but certain ones like this, it's like we're part of the game, and the game's been out a long time. Okay, if you don't know the plot to Warcraft 1, then it's high time you played the game. But we know from the game that there's a sorcerer named Medivh who has gone off his rocker and needs to be killed. But that's really all we know. And so these are things that are brought up in the game, but were not at all fleshed out. They were just missions that you had to do. And so when we're making a movie based on it, if this movie had come out about the same time they were making Warcraft 2, Warcraft 2 kind of fills in a little bit of the gaps, but not a lot. And so you could have done all sorts of crazy stuff with this, and it probably would have looked a lot different than it ended up doing. But we have a lot more than that now. We have just the massive amount of plot that is in World of Warcraft. The novels and the comic books have all added to the lore of these games, this franchise, and that lore now goes very, very deep and wide, and that lore now goes very, very deep, and there's a lot of history here. And so what ends up happening with the movie is that it's Warcraft 1, but informed by everything that has been told since then, and everything that's been added in the now decades since Orcs and Humans came out. That presents a challenge in filmmaking that I think is something that should be appreciated. And I don't want to say I have this argument all the time, because it's this really falls into one of those things. It's like, I don't actually care what you do in your leisure time. I don't like, if you listen to what I consider to be really, really crappy music, I don't actually care. And I find that, and this is true for me, for most of my life, the willingness that a lot of us have in judging people's recreation, it really is astonishing that we will turn our noses up to people based on what they watch, what they listen to, and all of that stuff. And that was totally me. And I'm, and especially us nerds, we should know better. It's like, it was not, just a few weeks ago that I got the eye roll, when I was saying that I was playing D&D over the weekend. And it's like, guys, it is 2020. Are we still doing that? And so, nerds have gotten the sharp end of that stick for ages. And so we should know better, but I also think that we kind of react in kind to try to make a point, but also in when you've discovered video games and Dungeons and Dragons, it really is hard to appreciate a lot of the stuff that normal people do. But at the same time, it's like, that's what they choose to do. If they're not interested in what we're interested in, that's probably more than fine. It's probably good. And so I am very much in that in that camp, and I have this sort of argument with Tolkien fans, because I'm a Tolkien fanatic all the time, especially about the Hobbit movies, but even about Lord of the Rings movies, that the changes that were made. And so for me, it's like, yeah, okay, I mean, yes, it's a different it's a different medium, and different mediums and different expectations require different things, and that's a really, really hard thing to accomplish when you are translating something with that sort of deep history, a deep lore, and also that's so beloved. I would say most people agree, like Peter Jackson hit a home run with the Lord of the Rings movies, but far fewer people liked The Hobbit. I happen to have liked The Hobbit, but there are varying degrees of purist out there. There are purists who can accept Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit was a step too far. And there are definitely purists in the Warcraft world. And so I didn't do any. I didn't want to do any research or anything when I was going into this movie, but I watched a lot of videos afterwards, and I watched a lot of videos because I'm not that familiar with the lore. I watched a lot of movies about changes that the movies made, and a lot of them were under the criticism of, well, actually you left out this point, and actually Garona is not actually half human, and you messed that up, and that sort of thing. And I just look, if you are that kind of purist, then you should not be watching these movies, because you're just making yourself mad. Unless you want to make a video of them, and then that's cool. Get get some views that way, and I'm totally on board with doing that. For goodness sake, that's exactly why I watched the Dragonlance movie, because I knew it was going to be terrible, and it was. It was totally just to do the podcast episode on it. So I totally get that, and there's no judgment here on that. But at the same time, it's like, if I were that kind of Tolkien fan, like the upcoming Lord of the Rings show or the movies or something, I would just avoid them. But I've seen a lot of that, and I tried to watch some videos of people who just were not as deep in the lore, like me, and the things they liked and things they didn't like were quite a bit different, and closer to my experience with the movie, and so it's like, at the end of the day, I say all this to say, I'm going to do my review of this movie here. And a lot of you are going to disagree with me. A lot of you might agree with me. And we're going to do it for completely different reasons. And I have no doubt that I would think differently about this movie if I were steeped in the lore. Honestly, I think I would probably like it better, because I'm not a purist when it comes to film. It's like I fully expect a lot of stuff to be changed. When you're taking the lore from a great many hours of gameplay, or hundreds of hours of gameplay, and stuffing it into a 2-hour movie, some stuff's got to change, and I'm totally okay with that. And so I think I might have actually liked it better if I did know the lore. But this is something that has a amongst the people that I watched, really garnered mixed reviews. So let's hit on the reviews a little bit. One of the reasons I didn't watch this movie because the reviews were terrible, and the reviews are legit terrible on it. Rotten Tomatoes has it like at 28%, something like that, something ridiculous. 4 years ago, I was much more inclined to look at the critics' reviews of it on Rotten Tomatoes and go, oh, okay, yeah, I think I need to avoid this one. As I find that I disagree with the critics more and more and more, I've started looking almost exclusively at the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes. And so when I went to go check it out, I found that the audience scores was like at 76%. And this is one of many movies that have happened lately where the audience score and the critic score are almost perfectly opposite. And since in those cases I really agree with the audience almost every single time, I started thinking, it's like, well, I was going to watch this movie thinking it was terrible just to do this review, much like I did with Dragonlance. But I was starting to think, it's like, I actually, now I'm starting to get in, now I'm starting to look forward to this. And so I was warned by one friend that the CGI was terrible. And when I turned it on, it was actually really, really good. And I really think that he was thinking of the wrong movie, because I was watching some other reviews and everybody kind of had the same reaction I did. The movie actually starts with the orcs. And this is something I really like about it. It's that, whenever I first picked up the game, orcs and humans, my background was Tolkien. And so I thought what kind of everybody else probably thought at the time is like, all right, we're going to be some humans. We're going to beat up some orcs. And then you find out it's like, oh, you can play the orcs too. And the orcs have a really good story, and their culture is very, very different than ours. And it's much more warlike. But as the lore grows, you find out that, well, actually there's reason for that. And, there are quite a few good orcs. And Warcraft has always been one that has tried to make a point that, look, there's some really, really evil orcs out there, like Gul'dan. And there are some really, really great orcs. And in this movie, Durotan, is our orc focus for the movie. And it's in the same way, you have bad guys amongst the humans, and you have very, very good guys amongst the humans. And Warcraft has always been one to really kind of focus more on that ambiguous nature of war, that like the people who go into war are not all trying to accomplish the same thing. They're under the same banner, the same flag, but they all have reasons to be there. And some of them are not great. And some of them really are great. And Warcraft has always been really, really good at highlighting that. And the fact that we start with a scene of Durotan and not of the humans, and it's a very, it's a funny scene. It's a heartwarming scene. It's a very sympathetic scene. And so our first immediate push into this world is seeing a very great orc, and with family, and trying to accomplish his mission, which his mission is being led by one of the truly great evil characters, Gul'dan, who is really trying to mess some stuff up. But we find our sympathies with the orcs right away, and focusing right away on a CGI character, was first of all, a really interesting choice, but it turned out to be a very, very cool choice. And the way they did the orcs was very, very cool. It was not at all difficult to, kind of keep all of them straight, and distinguished in the mind, because they did look as unique as all the humans looked. They're distinct from one another. And that was very, very cool. And I kept being impressed by particularly the orcs. And Durotan is the highlight of the movie. He and his story and his scenes are really, really good. And the way the orcs move and fight is very, very satisfying. And which is good, because I think that this movie stands or falls based on how connected you feel with the orcs, and if they had fallen into that kind of uncanny valley type of thing, or if they just looked like crap for some reason, it would have killed the movie. It really would have killed the movie. Of the humans, I really like Medivh's story. And, I remember that in Orcs and Humans, he is highlighted as just, this is an evil dude. This is an evil dude. And, we gotta go kill this guy. And his story has been fleshed out so much more by further Warcraft media, that, he is one of the kind of pillars to the lore, is what I'm learning. And I think they do a really, really good job with him. In fact, I would say that with most of the humans, the Garona herself, who was originally a spy for the orcs, who was actually being mind controlled by Gul'dan, is quite a bit changed in this movie. And I think I don't want to say it's for the better or for the worse, because I don't really know. I haven't really decided on that. What I will say is I really liked her. I think she added a lot to the movie. And so Anduin, Garona, Medivh, these were all characters that were more in the human plot that I thought were really interesting and added a lot to the movie as they went. All in all, all the characters I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the bad guys. I enjoyed Gul'dan a lot. Gul'dan was really, really cool bad guy. And he's really scary. He's really powerful. And in that, it made him fun to watch. And I liked most of the characters, and as they were, I felt the frustration of the war for them, especially Durotan, who I think is the standout of all of them. Durotan was just fantastic. His evolution and him slowly figuring things out, and his frustration was very, very cool. I love the fight scenes. I loved watching the orcs fight. When they, the size of them as they descended upon the humans, the way they fought, you could feel it when their weapons, when their hammers smacked down, and it felt powerful. And so this stuff I really, really liked. What I didn't like about the movie is that it felt like a movie for Warcraft fans, which makes it all the more odd that they changed so much. Like, a lot from what I can figure out, a lot was kept the same. A lot of these characters were kept very, very close to the way they were. But just like some super critical characters, like Garona herself, the half orc, they changed a lot about her, including that, apparently in the games and books and stuff, she is half orc, but not. I mean, the other half of her is not human. And in the movie, she's half human. And so stuff changes like that. The way that she assassinates the king is greatly changed. I think in an interesting way, but if you're making a movie for the fans, that's weird that you change that. That's just weird that you change that. The reason I say it was made for the fans and not for like the public at large is because there's so many of these names and Easter eggs that are thrown in, and I am lost in it. Like I watch these videos, of the background lore, and I'm like, oh, I see. I'm figuring it out now. But without that background, I am lost. And there's so many places that they just jump into for like a minute and a half that they put the name on the screen, and that name is like, hey, you WoW fans, look at this place. You know this place, don't you? But for someone like me, it's like, oh, okay, that's a place. And it's so disappointing because like the nearest thing I can compare this to is Lord of the Rings. But when Lord of the Rings, I'm like, you went like when you went to Bree, by the time they left Bree, you had a really good idea what Bree was like. Like you understood this town. And then they went to Rivendell, and you really got to know Rivendell, and wherever they went, they spent enough time building this place to not only have a distinct look, but a distinct feel, a distinct presence on the screen that you can understand. This really was just jumping from one place to another. I had no idea where they were going, how far away they were, anything like that. And, then they would leave. And I'm like, well, is that supposed to be important? Like, I mean, there's this one place where Khadgar, who's like this wizard, goes to this council that he abandoned at some point, and I never really understood why. And then they're really pissed off at him when he comes back, and I don't understand why, and I don't understand who these people are and what they do, and I'm sure the Warcraft fans know that, but I don't understand it. And I think in general, like the best Easter egg in a film is something that the fans notice and kind of go, oh, that's clever. But if you don't get the reference, then it doesn't affect your understanding of the film. And this movie did not do that. This movie is like, if you don't understand who these people are, we're not going to tell you, and you're going to be lost. It's like when I was looking at the lore videos, it's like I started to understand why Medivh, as soon as Medivh meets Khadgar, starts talking about Khadgar taking over as this guardian. And I was like, wait, is that a prophecy? What is that, a prophecy or something? What's happening here? Why are these words being said? I don't understand. And I had to watch videos later to understand what in the world he was talking about. And that detracts from the film and really seriously limits your audience. I can ignore a lot for some really good fantasy action, which is what I got, which is one of the reasons I ultimately have to say I enjoyed the film. I can ignore some funny names and some towns I don't recognize and stuff like that. I'm fine with that. I think I would have liked the movie more if a lot of that stuff was stripped away and we had a more concise film. I actually watched one review of it that was done at the time when it first came out, and they were talking about, a possible director's cut. And I don't know if that person was just making stuff up or if that was something that was considered, but this is ultimately something that I think could have benefited with an extra 30 minutes of screen time. I wonder if there was 30 minutes of extra screen time and it was just cut, to kind of get it into, kind of a 2-hour thing. Cause, that's what they really aim for in the movies. I think it could have benefited from that. Either that or strip away some of the stuff because it's just too much story to put into a 2-hour film. Especially a 2-hour film because it's like, I know that this is based on orcs and humans and there's almost no plot to that game. It's just like, there's like these little mission plots. It's like, hey, this guy's a bad guy. You need to go kill him. And I'd go, okay, I will do that. And then you do that and that's it. But this movie has a ton of plot and a ton of characters and it's very, 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 very big. I think it suffers for that. I think it's hurt by the weight of the lore. And that's kind of my ultimate, reaction to this movie is that ultimately I really liked it. I really did. But I was lost in a lot of it and I was getting the point of most of it. But I was kind of lost during a lot of it. And a lot of stuff that was said, I had no idea what they were talking about. And a lot of places they went to, I was like, I don't understand this place. And this is what, I don't know what's going on. The strength of the orcs in general, I think carry us through that. The strength of the battles carry us through that. The plot with Durtan and the orcs, they do kind of gloss over a lot of the history of the orcs and that sort of thing, but you don't really need it, in here. And you kind of just, you start going with Durtan and, I really liked him. I really liked his character. I liked him as a war chief, and I thought his plot was great, and that really helped carry this movie forward, because a lot of the human plot, as much as I liked it, and as much as I liked the characters, a lot of the human plot is where we started getting bogged down with names and places and characters, that I just didn't know who they were. Yeah, that is Warcraft the movie. I think it disappointed the studio from the box office. It did make nearly $440 million on a $160 million budget. And so, in the grand scheme of things, I think that has to be considered a success, but not enough of one to warrant a sequel. Which I kind of think is a shame. I think that, trying to tackle Warcraft 2 could have been a lot of fun, as long as you have learned your lessons from this movie and can move forward and kind of make a tighter package for the second movie. I think that could have been a lot of fun. I think they were really on to something, and I think that this sort of this grander story deserves more focus. And more people to experience it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I feel really weird, like saying I like a video game movie. But that's actually happening more often these days, because the last one I saw was Detective Pikachu, which I really, really liked. And the people I follow that saw Sonic have all really enjoyed that one too. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And this we might have kind of reached a place where we can where we've, kind of broken the curse of the video game movie, maybe, which would be really, really great. But I really do appreciate you tuning in today. A couple of things that, I'd love for you to do for me. The first one is check our show notes for the Discord channel. Please come hang out with us there. We talk a lot of, video game music, retro video games, Dungeons and Dragons, and that sort of thing. It's just a very, very nerdy place to be. If you are able to, and you have found value in this show and are able to support us financially, please do check us out at patreon.com/technofunkboy. We are on a mission to make it so that we don't lose money on this show anymore. We don't lose a ton, and we are we enjoy doing the show enough to be okay with continuing to lose a little bit of money to do the show, but we would very much rather get to a point where we are breaking even, and this is not something that we're expecting to make really any money on whatsoever, but it would be really, really helpful to us to get to a point where we're not having to open our own wallets to get to the point where we're not losing money on the show. You can check out the perks there at patreon.com/technofunkboy. We have, just completely messed up our goal of releasing a bunch of Mega Man 3 covers last year, but we released a ton of music to our patrons. Even though we fell short on that particular goal, there was just a lot of music, that our patrons just get access to. And, as well as our quarterly show Bloopery. And so please do check that out. Patreon.com/technofunkboy. If you are not able to support us financially, it's totally understand that and have no problem with that whatsoever. But there are ways that you can still support us. You can write us a review on Apple Podcast or on your podcast app of choice. You can tell friends about us, just generally spread the word, and that helps us immensely. The last thing is if you do enjoy videos as well, we've been getting some more videos uploaded at the Technofunkboy YouTube channel, and so you can find us there. We do a lot of stuff with retro game music there, and so please do check that out. That would mean a lot to me. So otherwise, I really do appreciate you hanging out with me for the discussion of Warcraft movie. We'll be continuing our series on RTSs next week, and so hopefully that you will join us then. Thank you.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Technofunkboy. Follow us on Twitter at Technofunkboy, on Facebook at the Technofunkboy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening. Keep gaming. and once you have responsibilities that need to be done over time, then you can game later.